I'm standing in my parents' dining room, the smell of roasted turkey and gravy thick in the air, my hands shaking as I stare at my brother Daniel's phone screen. An email draft to my company's HR, accusing me of stealing funds, a lie so bold it could ruin everything I've built. My heart slams against my ribs, a mix of shock and fury burning through me as his smirk widens, his finger hovering over the send button. My mom's fake tears glisten under the chandelier. My dad's jaw is locked tight, and the Thanksgiving table, once a symbol of warmth, is now a battlefield. Go ahead, I say, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Send it. His eyes flicker with doubt, and I know I've caught him off guard. This isn't just about my bonus anymore. It's war, and I'm done losing. My name's Sarah Evans. I'm 32, a financial analyst who clawed her way up from nothing. No handouts, no safety net, just grit and late nights. I paid for college with scholarships and bartending shifts, built a career at a firm that finally pays me what I'm worth, and this year, I got a $20,000 bonus, my biggest yet. Growing up, I was the invisible kid in my family. Daniel, 4 years younger, was the golden boy. My parents' pride, their excuse machine, the one they bailed out of every mess while I got, "You're strong, Sarah, you'll figure it out." I've spent my life swallowing that bitterness, but tonight, it's spilling over. It started an hour ago, at my parents' house in suburban Ohio. The dining room was decked out, linen tablecloth, flickering candles, a spread of mashed potatoes, stuffing, and that damn turkey I'd helped carve. My mom, Linda, wore her usual pearls, her smile too tight. My dad, Richard, sat at the head, his gray hair thinning, his hands folded like he was about to preach. Daniel slouched across from me, his hoodie rumpled, scrolling his phone like he owned the place. I'd driven 2 hours from Cleveland, my bonus check burning a hole in my mind. Not that I'd told them about it. I wanted one normal holiday, one night where I wasn't the family ATM. We were passing the gravy, small talk buzzing, Lily, my cousin's wife, asking about my job, Tom, my coworker who'd tagged along, joking about football, when my mom cleared her throat, that fake sweet tone I knew too well creeping in. "Sarah," she said, folding her hands, "we were thinking." My stomach sank. She glanced at my dad, who nodded and continued, "Since you got that big bonus this year, we figured it'd be really helpful if you gave it to Daniel. He's been struggling lately." The room went quiet, the clink of silverware stopping cold. My fork hovered over my plate, gravy dripping onto the stuffing with a soft plop, the sound unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. I blinked, a laugh bubbling up because I thought she was kidding. My mom couldn't possibly be this shameless, not on Thanksgiving, not in front of everyone. "That's funny," I said, setting the fork down with a shaky hand, the metal cool against my fingers. "Because I have a surprise for you, too." Their faces lit up. Mom's eyes gleaming with greed, a hungry glint I'd seen too many times. Dad's mouth twitching like he was about to praise me for being the good daughter again. Daniel's smirk growing wide and smug, like he'd already won the prize he didn't earn. I reached into my bag, my pulse quickening, and pulled out my laptop, opening it with a slow, deliberate click that echoed in the tense air. "I hope you're ready for this," I said, turning the screen toward them, my voice steady but laced with something sharp, something they didn't expect. The dining room felt frozen, like time had paused mid-breath. The candles flickered, casting long shadows across the turkey carcass, the mashed potatoes, the half-empty wine glasses. My mom, Linda, sat there in her pearl necklace and cream sweater, her smile stiffening as she clutched her napkin. My dad, Richard, leaned forward slightly, his gray eyes narrowing under bushy brows, his hands still folded like he was presiding over a sermon. Daniel slouched across from me, his hoodie wrinkled, his phone still in his hand from scrolling through whatever nonsense he'd been ignoring us for. Lily, my cousin's wife, sat to my left, her fork halfway to her mouth, her soft brown curls framing a confused frown. Tom Carter, my coworker who'd tagged along after I'd begged him for moral support, raised an eyebrow. His tie loosened from too much pie already. And then there was Aunt Claire, my dad's sister, perched at the end of the table, her sharp gaze darting between us, her silver earrings glinting as she sensed the shift. "What's this about?" Aunt Claire asked, her voice cutting through the quiet, crisp and curious, like she'd been waiting for something to spice up this dull holiday. I ignored her for now, my focus locked on my parents and Daniel, their expectant faces starting to crack. I tapped the first file on my screen, a spreadsheet I'd spent months building, every cell a dagger I'd sharpened for this moment. This, I said, my voice low but firm, is every bank transfer I've sent you. Every loan you swore you'd repay. Every emergency I bailed you out of because Daniel needed help. $35,000 over 10 years. Look at it. My mom's napkin slipped from her hand, fluttering to the table like a white flag she didn't mean to drop. Her face paled, her lips parting in a silent gasp. My dad's hands unclenched, flattening on the tablecloth, his knuckles whitening as he stared at the numbers glowing in the dim light. Dates, amounts, memo lines like, for Daniel's rent, and car repair. Daniel's smirk vanished, his phone clattering to the table as he leaned forward, his eyes wide with something between shock and panic. "What the hell is this?" he snapped, his voice cracking, his usual bravado slipping. "Language," my dad muttered, automatic and hollow, but his eyes didn't leave the screen. Lily set her fork down, whispering, "Sarah, what's going on?" Tom leaned closer, his breath smelling faintly of pumpkin spice, and muttered, "Holy shit, you've been tracking this?" I nodded, my chest tight with a mix of triumph and rage. "Oh, I'm just getting started," I said, clicking the next file. Daniel's credit card statements, a gift from Jess Harper, my best friend and it wizard who'd cracked his accounts like they were child's play. "And this," I said, scrolling through the list, "is where it went." The screen lit up with charges. $500 on Nike Air Jordans, $800 at a Miami club, $2,200 for a Vegas hotel. I flipped to Instagram screenshots. Daniel grinning with a champagne bottle, a Rolex glinting on his wrist, a $3,000 gaming setup in his grimy apartment. "While you told me he was drowning," I said, my voice rising, "he was living like this." Aunt Claire let out a low whistle, her lips curling into a smirk. "Well, damn, Daniel. Nice watch." Lily's jaw dropped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Is this true?" she asked, turning to him, her voice trembling with disbelief. Daniel scoffed, his face flushing red. "It's not that serious. Exaggerated bullshit." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made my mom flinch. "Not serious? You spent my money on vacations while I worked overtime to keep you afloat." I clicked the final file, my ace in the hole, and turned the screen again. "And this," I said, my voice dropping to a cold, steady hum, "is the mortgage payments I made on this house, the one you said was in foreclosure, $15,000 over a year. Except I checked the county records, it's been paid off since 2018. The air sucked out of the room. My mom's wine glass trembled in her hand, a drop spilling onto the tablecloth, staining it red. My dad's face went slack, his breath escaping in a slow, shaky exhale. "You funneled it to Daniel," I said, pointing at him, my finger steady despite the storm inside me. "His struggles, his parties, his toys. You lied to my face." Tom let out a low whistle, shaking his head. "That's next level messed up." Aunt Claire leaned back, crossing her arms, her smirk widening. "Richard, you always were a sneaky bastard." "You went behind our backs," my dad said, his voice low and dangerous, like I was the villain here. I stood, my chair scraping the hardwood, my chest heaving with years of pent-up fury. "You stole from me, all of you, over and over, and you expect me to hand over my bonus to this loser?" Daniel slammed the table, jumping up, his fists clenched. "I'm not a loser." My dad stood too, his voice booming. "Sit down, Daniel." He hesitated, his eyes darting to Dad, then dropped back into his seat, fuming, his breath coming fast. My mom reached for me, her hand trembling, her voice soft and pleading. "Sweetheart, you don't understand. We were just helping him." I yanked my arm away, my skin prickling with disgust. "Helping him? You've been helping him my whole life while I got scraps." I pointed at the laptop, my voice shaking but strong. "I've got proof, every lie, every dime, and now you're paying me back." Their faces fell, a stunned silence swallowing the room. Lily stared at me, her eyes wide, whispering, "Sarah, this is insane." Tom grinned, leaning back. "Better than reality TV." But my mom wasn't done. She switched to tears, her voice breaking, her hands wringing the napkin like a lifeline. "We're family, Sarah. We just wanted to protect Daniel." I rolled my eyes, the act so predictable it made my stomach turn. "Protect him? You've babied him into a parasite." My dad rubbed his temples, his voice tight. "And if we don't pay?" I smiled, slow and cold, clicking another file. A tax fraud dossier Jess had dug up, 5 years of fake deductions and unreported cash Daniel made from odd jobs. "Then I send this to the IRS, I said, tapping the screen. My mom choked, a strangled sob escaping her. "The IRS? Daniel muttered, frowning, his brain catching up too slow. What the hell does that mean? I leaned in, my voice a hiss. It means tax fraud, fake income reports, claiming you as a dependent while you raked in cash under the table. Illegal cash you spent while they begged me for help. Daniel's head whipped to my dad, his voice rising. Wait, what? You said we were broke. My dad wouldn't look at him. His eyes locked on me, and I saw it. Fear, real and raw, flickering in his gray stare. You don't want to do this, he said, his voice quiet but edged with a threat. Why not? I shot back, my hands trembling with adrenaline. Because we're family? Family wouldn't have bled me dry for years. Daniel stood again, pointing at me, his face twisted with rage. Shut up, you self-righteous bitch. You think you're better than me because you've got some boring office job? I met his glare, my pulse pounding but my resolve steel. Yeah, I do, because I earned it, unlike you. Then he laughed, a slow, ugly sound that sent a chill racing down my spine. You think you're winning this? He said, shaking his head, his smirk creeping back. You're not the only one with leverage. My stomach dropped, a bad feeling curling in my gut as he pulled out his phone, tapped the screen and turned it toward me. There it was, an email draft to my company's HR, alleging I'd misused funds, a lie so vicious it could end my career in a heartbeat. You framed me, I whispered, my voice shaking with disbelief, my hands gripping the table to keep from lunging at him. He shrugged, grinning like a snake. Call it insurance. My pulse roared, panic clawing at my chest, but I forced it down, staring at the screen. You didn't send it yet, I said, spotting the draft status, my mind racing. His grin faltered. What? I smirked, leaning in, my voice steadying. It's still a draft, genius. Go ahead, send it. His finger hovered, hesitation flickering in his eyes, and I laughed, deep and bitter. You're bluffing. You don't know how HR works. They'll trace it to you. Defamation, fraud, I'll sue you into the ground. His hand shook, doubt creeping in, and I pressed harder, my voice ablade. And Dad, your tax mess? One email and you're audited. Fines, jail. My mom gasped. You wouldn't. Her voice a desperate wail. I tilted my head cold as ice. Try me. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, their panic washing over me like a wave. I stood, packing my laptop, my voice calm but final. Here's the deal. Drop this, stop asking for money, pay me back, or I burn it all down. My mom screamed, a broken sound that tore through the room. You can't walk away from us. I turned back, my heart pounding but my resolve unshakable. I was all you had. I looked at Daniel, his face pale, his smirk gone. And you? You're nothing to me now. I grabbed my coat, the November air biting my face as I stepped outside, freedom surging through me, sharp and sweet. I stepped outside, the November air biting my face, sharp and cold against the heat still simmering in my chest. The door slammed behind me, cutting off my mom's desperate wail. Sarah, don't do this! And for the first time in years, I felt light, like I'd shed a weight I'd carried too long. My boots crunched on the gravel driveway, my breath fogging in the dark, and I didn't look back. Not at the house, not at the glowing windows, not at the family I'd just torched. My laptop bag swung against my hip, heavy with evidence, heavier with power, and as I climbed into my car, my hands shook, not from fear but from the rush of finally standing up. I drove the 2 hours back to Cleveland in silence, the hum of the engine the only sound, my mind replaying every second of that dinner, their faces, their lies, Daniel's smug little email trick. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, lighting up with missed calls, Mom, Dad, even Aunt Claire, but I ignored them, letting the quiet settle over me like a blanket. When I got home, my apartment was dark, the city skyline glittering through the window, and I collapsed onto the couch, my heart still pounding. I'd won the battle, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, I called Jess Harper, my voice hoarse from shouting. She picked up on the first ring, her tone bright with mischief. So, how'd it go? Did they freak? I laughed, a tired, jagged sound, and spilled it all. The spreadsheet, the Instagram flexes, the mortgage scam, Daniel's email draft. He tried to frame me, I said, my hands tightening around my coffee mug, the warmth seeping into my palms. An HR complaint said I stole company funds. Jess sucked in a breath, then laughed, sharp and delighted. That little shit. Did he send it? Not yet, I said, my voice steadying. It's still a draft. He hesitated when I called his bluff. She hummed, thoughtful. Smart move, but he might grow a spine and hit send. Let me check something. I heard her typing, fast and furious, the clack of keys a familiar comfort. Okay, she said after a minute. I've got access to his email. Hacked it weeks ago for the credit card stuff. He's logged in now, drafting again. Want me to block it? My stomach flipped, a mix of dread and glee. Can you? She snorted. Please, I could shut down his whole account. Give me 10 minutes. While Jess worked her magic, I called Tom Carter. He'd seen the whole Thanksgiving blowout, and I needed to know if HR had anything yet. He answered, groggy from the holiday hangover. Sarah, you okay after last night? That was wild. I paced my living room, the hardwood creaking under my socks. Yeah, but Daniel's got an email draft accusing me of fraud. Has HR said anything? Tom paused, then cursed under his breath. Shit, yeah, I got a text from Laura in HR this morning. An anonymous complaint came in an hour ago. Financial misconduct, your name on it. They're opening an investigation. My knees buckled and I sank onto the couch, panic clawing at my throat. He sent it, I whispered, my voice trembling. Tom's tone hardened. Don't freak out yet. Laura owes me a favor. I'll tell her it's fishy, probably a setup. You got proof you're clean? I nodded, though he couldn't see me, my mind racing to my expense logs, my clean audits. Yeah, I've got everything. Tom exhaled, firm. Good. Send it to me. I'll push it to Laura. We'll bury this asshole. I hung up, my hands shaking as I emailed Tom my records. Every receipt, every report, a fortress of honesty I'd built over years. Then Jess called back, her voice smug. Done. He tried sending a second email, CCing your boss this time, but I intercepted it, rerouted it to my inbox, deleted it from his sent folder. He's got no clue. I laughed, a real laugh this time, relief flooding me. You're a genius, Jess, she chuckled. Damn right. What's next? I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, my resolve hardening. I need a lawyer. Maggie Klein met me that afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. 40, sharp as a blade, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun, her eyes glinting with a predator's focus. I'd found her through a work contact, and when I laid out the story, the money, the tax fraud, Daniel's email, she grinned, slow and dangerous. This is a gold mine, she said, sipping her espresso, her pen tapping her notepad. The email's defamation, provable with Jess's hack logs. The tax fraud? That's federal. IRS would eat your parents alive. And the money they owe you? We can sue for restitution. My chest tightened, hope and vengeance tangling together. Can we win? Maggie smirked. Oh, we'll win, and we'll make it hurt. We drafted a letter that night. Formal, brutal, addressed to my parents and Daniel. It listed everything. The $35,000 in loans, the $15,000 mortgage scam, the tax fraud files ready for the IRS, the defamation threat if Daniel didn't retract his complaint. Pay me back $50,000, I wrote, my voice steady in the words, or I send it all, IRS, courts, your dirty laundry on a platter. Maggie added a legal flourish, her signature a promise of pain, and I mailed it the next day, my hands steady as I dropped it in the box, the weight lifting just a little more. 2 days later, my phone rang. My dad, his voice low and strained. Sarah, we got your letter. I stood on my balcony, the city wind whipping my hair, my heart cold. Good, I said, flat and final. He paused, then tried his old tactic, soft and pleading. We're family. Don't do this. We'll figure something out. I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Family? You stole from me, lied to me, let Daniel try to ruin me. Family's done, he sighed heavy. What do you want? I gripped the railing, my voice steel. Pay me, or lose everything. He hung up, the silence a surrender. A week passed, tense and quiet, until Tom called, his voice bright. Char closed the investigation, your records checked out, and Laura traced the email IP to a coffee shop near Daniel's place. He's toast. They've blacklisted him from any vendor deals. I exhaled, relief washing over me, my shoulders sagging. Thanks, Tom. You saved me. He chuckled. Nah, you saved yourself. Oh, and your boss wants to meet. Something about a promotion. I laughed, shaky and real, hope flickering anew. Then Jess texted, Check your bank. $10,000 just hit. I opened my app, my breath catching. My parents had sent the first payment, a fraction of what they owed, but a crack in their armor. I didn't reply, didn't thank them, just watched the numbers, my victory growing. A month later, Lily called, her voice hushed. Sarah, the IRS showed up at your parents'. They're auditing everything. Daniel's freaking out, says he's broke now. They might lose the house. I stood in my kitchen, the sun streaming through the window, a smirk tugging at my lips. Good, I said, and meant it. I used my bonus to start a side gig. Financial consulting, my own rules, my own money. Daniel's out there scrambling, his dreams crumbling under blacklists and debt. My parents? They're drowning in fines, their perfect facade shattered, maybe even facing jail if the IRS digs deeper. Me? I'm free, building something new, but I keep one eye open. They're not done, not yet. I can feel it, a shadow lurking, waiting to strike back. Here's what I learned. Blood doesn't make family. Trust does, and when it's gone, you fight or you fall. I fought, and I'm standing. They fell, and they're suffering. Will they try again? Maybe. Will I be ready? Damn right. So what do you think? Should I let them rot or brace for round 2? Drop your take below. I'm all ears.